The Mugshot that launched 1 billion merchandise sales is out. It is everywhere. You can't turn on a screen right now without seeing the stupid ass Mugshot. But we'll talk about this, the return to X, and what this means going forward, by the way, especially with Fannie Willis trying to push the trial forward even faster than what she had originally planned. But we'll talk about all of this and more, talking about the Trump mugshot and everything that's happened from it. In other news, Joe Biden has just signed off on funding the next big vaccine for the COVID, which means that you're probably going to be required to take it at some point here. So they're going to try to push it down your throat, and do resist. This is not official advice, of course. You figure out your relationship with the law, but we'll be talking about that and what's happening there and what we do with that. NPC News accuses Vivek Ramaswamy of celebrating his immigrant family while praising Nazis. Yes, that is a real headline from NPC News, by the way. And Ukrainian pilots arrive in the U.S. for F-16 fighter jet training in Arizona. It is going to be all of this and more over here on Contemporary tonight. And now my bitter hands chafe beneath the clouds of what was everything. I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar. For the last time on a Friday for at least a little while, as announced last night, I will be going on a break from Contemporary for the entire month of September. And, well, the 1st of September is on a Friday this week, so we're going to see. And I want to reiterate that this is not me stepping completely away from the camera. That is never going to happen because I enjoy this way too much. But as I've found, working 60 hours a week, the stresses and strains of working a 60-hour job plus doing a 2-hour daily live stream has become too much for the point of life now. I do want to return to doing some one-off videos on specific topics. That's something that I've been looking forward to doing ever since I first thought about getting back off of this, and ever since there were topics up there to go back and cover for that. It's just, when is there ever time to, when you sit back and live stream pretty much until you go to bed every night. So there's that avenue of things. Some video games, some music. I especially want to get into the video game stuff. I'm not going to stop analyzing news either, by the way. So just that's going to continue to happen. We might discuss it while we're playing StarCraft. Who knows? But that is enough of that. We do have a lot of stuff to go over here tonight, and we're going to see if we can get through all of it before we head out for the evening. So grab some popcorn, grab some snacks, and grab some friends, and let's get in here for the live chat, and let's see what we're talking about here tonight with the big mugshot. That's going to be the big one, and I think a lot of people are going to be talking about that going into the weekend as well. I think it was kind of set up that way, but we'll be talking a bit about that, and the debate that fell off, by the way. We'll be talking just a touch about that with one article. Biden getting ready to pump money into a new COVID vaccine, which, I mean, if he's going to spend that kind of money, he's going to expect you to take it, so just keep that in mind. Elon news, Vivek news, Subway sandwiches just sold to a capital investment firm just recently. We'll be talking about that and more over here. So Strap yourselves in and let's get started. Before we do, make sure you guys go check out great programming such as The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, The R-Rated Conservative, The Porch Boys, Tweets by Brit, Mr. Behavior, The No Gimmicks Podcast, Silent Caster, Clown World Chronicles with Papa Palpatine, and Overruled with KTZed. Go check out all that great programming as we aim to bring you a better news experience from the common man for the common man. Stop getting your news and your culture from people who hate you and wear suits that cost more than your house. Get your news and culture from people who are just like you. And let's get into it. Let's get started. A little bit of a late start tonight. I apologize for that. I got a late start organizing tabs, and, well, that led me to get a late start in getting everything else going. But let's get into it, let's get started, and we're going to start, as we always do, with our finance. And by the way, feel free to chat in and chime in with a live chat. That's up here all night, and I'll be responding to it as it goes. There are certain things, obviously, that cannot be said on YouTube because, well, they've got the censors out, and they are looking for any reason to go back and shut everything down. But let's get into it. Let's do this. On the Dow spent the day up with a brief dip back below the previous close today, meaning, and it didn't erase all the losses from yesterday either, which, I mean, how could it at this point? It is still in the 34,000 range at 34,346.9 points. That is up 247.48 points, or 0.75% on the day today. And we'll see what's happening with the futures as that goes. Looking in at your Bitcoin, that took a tumble on the day today after staying steady throughout the day and taking a big spike about the middle of trading. Today it did drop off and attempt to recover as it went, and it did a fairly decent job of recovering, but it still ended the day down 122.9 US dollars, or about a 0.5%, to $26,040 US dollars and 50 US cents. So that is what we see on your Bitcoin. Apologize if you lost anything on the Bitcoin today. It wasn't a huge loss, but that is what we see coming from that. And there is no fuel article today because Google completely changed how they do their map. And of course, if you go to Gas Buddy, they're going to go and find everything outside of the metro area. So we're not going to see what is actually happening in the same stations we've been looking at. So for this last week that we do this, I'm going to have to find another way to go figure out what the gas prices are. But in our finance article for the day from Investors Business Daily, Dow Futures rally attempt fights on. What to do now? Tesla, Nvidia lead stocks to watch, from Ed Carson. I gotta take this down in my ear just a little bit. That's better. The market had a mixed week. On the one hand, the S&P and especially the Nasdaq advanced, but the major indices suffered ugly reversals on Thursday. Despite blowing out Nvidia earnings and guidance, stocks did rebound on Friday, despite a hawkish Fed chief Jerome Powell, but many leading stocks remain damaged. A market rally attempt remains ongoing, but investors should remain cautious in the current environment, especially with tech names. Nvidia rose solidly for the week, but came well off Thursday morning highs and faces a key test. Meanwhile, other chip and artificial intelligence plays suffered sharp losses. Tesla jumped last week, coming up to key levels. Other stocks to watch: Meta, Alphabet, as well as Visa, Caterpillar, and Salesforce. Salesforce headlines: another big week for software earnings. Nvidia and Meta are on the IBD leaderboard. Nvidia stock is on the IBD 50. Nvidia, Meta, Caterpillar, and Google are on the IBD Big Cap 20. On the futures, of course, do not open until 6 p.m. on Sunday. Although it does look like things are starting to point downwards as we look at the chart and what's happening with that, we will not know any definitive answer until 6 p.m. Sunday in the evening. So that's something to watch there. And remember, of course, overnight and over the weekend, action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. So that is what we see coming from that. Your layoff support today comes to you from Fox 59 out of Indianapolis. More Indiana layoffs. Mass layoffs hit Kokomo. Not the one off the Florida Keys either, unfortunately. 1,300 plus laid off in August, from Matt Christie. Nearly 200 Howard County employees will soon be without work after an automotive supplier announced mass layoffs at two separate Kokomo facilities, becoming the latest instance of closures or layoffs, affecting hundreds of Hoosiers workers. According to notices submitted to the Indiana Department of Workforce Development, Borg Warner, an automotive component supplier based in Michigan, will conduct mass layoffs at 2 facilities located within a block of one another on Morgan Street in Kokomo. Excuse me for just a moment. At the Borg Warner facility located at 1501 County Road E, 200 North, 82 employees will be permanently laid off. A number of different positions were included as part of the layoffs, with manufacturing operators being hit the hardest at 52 employees. That's important to watch. And again, something that we have been continuing to watch as we go every single day on this. And the majority of people who are getting laid off have always been middle management, HR, department heads, managers, things like that. Not necessarily productive workers. And well, given the fact, of course, these facilities are completely closing at this point, means that everybody's getting laid off there. But this is an effect that's hitting the workforce, the productive employees, not just the non-productive people, the people that are sitting in management that are making the calls, making the phone calls, and relaying orders from the top to the middle to the bottom, as it has been traditionally. So this is where we're going to start to feel some of the pinch as we go, so do pay attention to this as it goes. Tri-Allen Company, which is owned by Borg Warner, told DWD that 110 workers will be permanently laid off at their facility, located just a block west of the other affected facility on Morgan Street. The soon-to-be unemployed Kokomo workers join a growing list of Hoosiers who are out of work due to layoffs and closures around the state. In August alone, more than 1,300 Hoosiers learned that they would soon be without a job. Just this week, Trin Incorporated announced a plant closure in Ashley, located to the northeast corner of Indiana, that will put 155 employees out of work. The layoffs will begin in November and continue all the way until March. WestRock, a packaging company, announced the closure of its entire Columbus facility last week, which will put 101 employees out of work. These layoffs are set for October 15th. Other layoffs in August across Indiana include Allen Ritchie in Plainfield, affecting 242, Owens Corning in Wabash, affecting 87, Arrowhead Engineered Products in Jasper, affecting 52, BWI Group in Greenfield, affecting 9, that's the little one, Aurorium in Indianapolis, affecting 159, and Tyson Foods in Corydon, affecting 368. Man! Does this sound an awful lot like the Obama economy? Again. To the point where you almost want to sit back and listen and wait for the speech to come out for Biden to get up on the stage and say, "Hey man, I'm telling you, these jobs aren't coming back, man. We'll find you better jobs and you can learn to..." Can't say that on YouTube, obviously. "Well, we're sorry. These jobs they're just not they're not coming back, man." And it's interesting too, as we sit here and see this, especially out in the Rust Belt, where we're supposed to be getting all these brand new manufacturing jobs coming in, and what do we see right here? Allen Ritchie, Owens Corning. These are names I recognize, by the way, being around the industrial life for my entire life. Arrowhead Engineered Products in Jasper, I know that one. BWI, obviously, Borg Warner, Aurorium, and Tyson Foods. These are all manufacturing jobs. So I don't know if these people are just going to go running to another manufacturing job facility or what the story is going to be, but don't worry, the entire economy is fine. Best economy in the world. We're just laying off people left and right. But that is your layoffs report for the day. All right, let's talk about the mugshot that was heard around the world. On his triumphant return to X, the Donald, with nothing but the picture and a link to his campaign website, donaldjtrump.com, puts out his mugshot in an incredible boomer-esque fashion. Mugshot, August 24th, 2023. Captioned, "Election Interference, Never Surrender," donaldjtrump.com. And everybody on both sides of the aisle have been spending this and using this for merch sales, left and right. This has been one of the most circulated photos probably in history at this point. This might beat the Tiananmen Square photo at this point, and it's only been out for less than 24 hours. And it's on t-shirts, and it's on mugs, and everybody on every political stripe thinks that they got one up on the people of the other political stripe right now. Did they, though? Maybe. It's telling to me that so many people are able to fundraise off of this, but that is the mugshot that was heard around the world. So, the arrest was done, the mugshot was taken, the weight was given, which I think a lot of people are saying bullshit about that. Not 100% sure I buy it either, but that's because I have a very slim and slender build, with the exception of what's happening here. And I am 6 even, not 6'3". And I go 220. I do not weigh more than that man. That is not a thing that's happening. But he's released a statement. Trump makes a statement after arrest in Fulton County from Ryan Saavedra. Former President Trump told reporters after being released on bond on Fulton County on Thursday night that his arrest on more than a dozen felony counts was a very sad day for America that should never happen. Trump, who is charged along with 18 other co-defendants, faces 13 felony counts, including solicitation of violation of oath by a public officer, conspiracy to commit forgery in the first degree, conspiracy to commit false statements and writings, false statements and writings, violation of Georgia's RICO Act, conspiracy to commit impersonating a public officer, conspiracy to commit filing a false document, and filing false documents. Speaking with reporters before boarding his plane to leave the state, Trump said that his actions amounted to nothing more than challenging an election. I thought the election was rigged election, a stolen election, and I should have every right to do that. The Donald pointed at Democrats who have said that an election was stolen from them as proof that he should be able to do the same. But you see, there's a big difference there. The news media will paint whatever they say in a rosy picture and agree with them, and they will not do that for you. What is taking place here is a travesty of justice. We did nothing wrong. I did nothing wrong. And everybody knows that I've never had such support. Trump said that all 4 criminal cases against him are examples of election interference. Let's listen.
Right now, what you see on your screen is waiting to see if and what the former president has to say. It looks like he is now getting out of his vehicle. Let's hear what he has to say.
I really believe this is a very sad day for America. This should never happen. If you challenge an election, you should be able to challenge an election. I thought the election was a rigged election, a stolen election, and I should have every right to do that. As you know, you have many people that you've been watching over the years do the same thing, whether it's Hillary Clinton or Stacey Abrams or many others. When you have that great freedom to challenge, you have to be able to, otherwise you're going to have very dishonest elections. What has taken place here is a travesty of justice. We did nothing wrong. I did nothing wrong. And everybody knows it. I've never had such support. And that goes with the other ones, too. What they're doing is election interference. They're trying to interfere with an election. There's never been anything like it in our country before. This is their way of campaigning. And this is one instance, but you have 3 other instances. It's election interference. So I want to thank you for being here. We did nothing wrong at all. And we have every right, every single right, to challenge an election that we think is dishonest, that we think is very dishonest. So thank you all very much, and I'll see you very soon. Thank you very much.
Did you pardon yourself? And there are those comments from the former.
There's some interesting things that are brought forward with what he said with that. One of the big ones, of course, is the fact that questioning election results is a grand tradition in this country. It has been going on for a long time. I was right along with a lot of people who questioned W's election when I was staunchly in the tank for the left, back when I believed that they weren't massively authoritarian. When I thought that they were the liberals. When I thought that they were the ones who were fighting for the little guy, instead of course, as I found out as I grew up and grew older, that instead they are the ones who are out there making sure that you cannot work unless you join their petty little union. Which, by the way, why Janet Protasewicz is a justice on the Wisconsin Supreme Court. Everyone thinks it's all about abortion rights with her, and a lot of people are starting to think, no, it's about the gerrymandering case that's coming back forward before the Supreme Court. Nope, that is a challenge to Act 10. There are several unions that are working in the background right now to make a coherent challenge to Act 10. And I love how the fact that Wisconsin Republicans don't believe me for this. But there is a direct challenge to Act 10 that's coming. And they want her to be on the court so they can decide that and get it thrown out so they can force people working in not just manufacturing, but several industries in my state back onto the union payroll and, of course, back paying union dues. But enough about that as far as this goes. I mean, I was there in questioning Bush's election. Absolutely was. I don't necessarily believe that he got in quite the way that he said that he did, and there actually was a possibility that if Florida had gone a different way, then Albert Gore would have been the president. Albert Gore would have been the president. In 2000, as far as 2004, I don't know if he would have been able to stick it out. I think he would have been an incumbent that would not have made his way through. Because typically, especially when you get through the third term of somebody, you're starting to get sick of that party's policies. Unless you're doing an incumbent over an incumbent over an incumbent like you had with FDR, I don't think that there is a time in history where we've had a successful fourth term of a political party. I would have to go back and look in my mid-20th century history, but I don't think that we've ever had longer than 12 years of one political party in this country. Correct me if I'm wrong, of course. As far as this goes, yes, there are questions about whether or not this is a violation of the freedom of speech. The people prosecuting don't care. And the people they're going to try to find for the jury pool don't care. This is going to be a very, very hard jury pool to pick up because of the fact that so many people in this country, pretty much everybody, knows who this is. And realistically, although this is a sad, sad idea in this country that was founded on limited federal government, there are so many people who believe that they've been affected by this person just based on the fact that he was the president directly. Just saying those words sends chills up my spine, but it's a reality. It's a thing that happens. I would like to see where this goes. I don't know if the outcome of this has been honked already. That's one of the other things that I'd like to see and look forward to, is seeing how they actually manage to try something like this. Because you really don't want to take a shot at the king and miss. And while he's not in office anymore, his poll numbers keep climbing and Biden keeps screwing with the economy. We keep seeing every day that there are more and more and more layoffs coming. So that is where we are at with that. Biden chimes in on this one. Biden chimes in on Trump mugshot. Hey, handsome guy, man. From Alex Gangatano. President Brandon on Friday chimed in on former President Trump's mugshot, saying his top political rival is, hey, look, it's a handsome guy, man, after he was booked in Fulton County, Georgia. When asked about the mugshot, Biden told reporters, I did see it on the television, man. That's a handsome guy. Trump on Thursday surrendered to Georgia authorities. We know that. He took a mugshot, making him the first former president in history to do so. Look, they insisted on a mugshot, and I agreed to do that. This is the only time I've ever taken a mugshot. Earlier this week, Trump was interviewed by Tucker Carlson, which aired on the same time as the first Republican primary debate. Biden told reporters that he didn't have an interest or an inclination to watch the interview. He probably does. He doesn't have the ability, but he probably does have an interest. A lot of that, with a little bit of coherence that Biden has left, is trash talk, by the way. And I would almost call it a dereliction of duty if he didn't watch it. If you want me to be completely honest about it. The president also bashed the GOP debate, arguing that the candidates vying to challenge him for the White House didn't talk about issues. I don't remember them speaking to issues. There was a lot of talk. To be fair, Biden doesn't remember what he had for breakfast today. So there's that. Or his own name half the time. But what are they going to do to deal with economic growth? Well, better than you did. What are they going to do to deal with the notion that maintaining the job pace that we have now, as we just have another 1,300 people laid off in Indiana? What are they going to do to deal with education, man? Come on. Biden spoke to reporters while on vacation in Lake Tahoe, Nevada. The president was leaving the Pilates studio with his family, including his daughter, Ashley Biden. So, that's what he thinks that he has to say about that. So, that's where we go for that. Spartan is here. I got one from the Daily Wire. This is from the editor emeritus of the Daily Wire, one Mr. Benjamin Shapiro. Why Trump's mugshot is a big win for Trump. I have my own opinions on this, but I want to hear what Ben has to say. So let's have a listen here from Ben Shapiro. Donald Trump's mugshot will be the most trafficked photo in the history of planet Earth because social media is so ubiquitous. Yesterday, he went to the Fulton County jailhouse where he was arrested and fingerprinted. They took a picture. The mugshot is out now. No, I'm not going to read this article in Ben voice because, for a little quote or anything else like that, it's good and it's easy, but to go line after line after line like that in Ben voice will get exhausting at some point. It's a win for Trump to have his mugshot taken. The left thought it would be a win for them, but here's the thing about Trump. Trump is a walking, living, breathing meme. He is made for TV. He's made for the internet. He has changed our age because of that. It's not as though no one knew he was arrested. It's not as though it was a shock dawning on the American people that Donald Trump is under indictment for 4 separate jurisdictions. We've known about all this for months. What the mugshot does, especially this particular mugshot, is give Trump the appearance of somebody who is bravely standing up to forces that are going after him. Whatever else you can say about the guy, he was a TV star. He knows what he looks like on camera. There is zero chance that before he did this mugshot, he didn't sit with his team and say, okay, what expression should I use in the mugshot? Since it's going to be the most trafficked photo of me ever, what expression should I use? This is a pitch-perfect shot for Trump's purposes. He doesn't look as though he's afraid or concerned or anxious, even though JoJo from Joy says that he looks absolutely terrified. He doesn't even look angry. He looks determined. The goal here is to look as though he is the face of doom and coming for his enemies. And that's what it looks like. This is what he's going to convey for the rest of the campaign. I'm coming for my enemies, and your enemies are my enemies. There's a reason why he's already trotting it out on the mugs. There's a reason why he's already trotting it out on the t-shirts, and the cash machines at the Trump headquarters are going nonstop. Everybody knew that Trump was supposed to show up for the arrest at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time last night. At exactly that time, Joe Biden tweeted out, apropos of nothing, I think today's a great day to give to my campaign. Those are bad optics for Biden. Trump's entire case here is that the Democrat Party infrastructure is going after Donald Trump to make Joe Biden president. So at the exact time that Trump is showing up to be arrested, Biden tweets out, I think today is a great day to give to my campaign. Biden company claimed this isn't a political prosecution, and then Biden tweets out that message exactly as the arrest is happening, rather than, this is a sad day for your country. To tweet that message at precisely at that time is just disgusting. But, of course, again, what Ben doesn't point out, what Ben overlooks when he puts this down in the article, and I read his tweet when he was talking about this, and I read the Biden tweet as well. Number one, Biden didn't put that tweet out. His team did. That's the first part of this. Karine Jean-Pierre is likely the one who authored that tweet. But this is something, and again, with me, being a former Democrat, this is something that Ben Shapiro is never going to be able to wrap his mind around. When we see the Biden campaign, what that entails, what it is he's trying to push onto the American people, the idea that all of your problems can be blamed on MAGA Republicans, and saying that he is going to protect you from MAGA Republicans, while standing in front of a blood-red background with Marines standing behind him and his fists balled up in determination, like the good Fuhrer that he is. That is the message that's resonating to people. But Joe Biden does not have an agenda. He does not have a platform. As much as they come out and try to tell you that the economy is going swimmingly, the economy sucks right now. There is a reason that they are campaigning on, I am the only one that can protect you from the evils of MAGA and MAGA Republicans. And for people who are going to donate to this, not independents, although independents I think is somebody he's swinging for off of this, but to get the donations that he's looking for, that was a genius move for him to put that tweet out exactly when he did. As he is, in the eyes of the people who are so religiously adept to him, so religiously focused on Joe Biden and the Biden administration. Yes, that was the perfect time to do so. Ben is right, it's disgusting, but for the people who are all in the tank for Biden, or more importantly, the people who will tell you that they would love to see somebody other than Biden, but they don't know who they could possibly support, because if they support the wrong person, we could get 4 more years of Trump. Yes, that was an amazing message for Biden to put out there, to go to these religious sycophants that will sit there and empty their wallets to make sure that we don't get 4 more years of Trump. So that's something that Ben misses off of this. But as far as what Trump does, I mean, it's the same idea. Donald Trump's message. And it's almost incredible the fact that both of these people are basically using the exact same campaign against each other. Donald Trump's message is, look, they're doing this to me, and they're going to turn around and do it to all of you. And there are stupid people out there, and X, by the way, that are stupid enough to say this too. They do believe that on the left, that they need to put everybody who voted for Trump in jail. It's just 99% of them won't say it out loud. And there are a few people that are saying the quiet part out loud. It's time to go take every Trump voter and put them in lockup for this, one right after another. I think I have a tweet like that in Clown World in my Discord. But that's his message. That's Trump's platform. You have to vote for me. Everything was great under me. Plus, I'm the only one that can protect you from the woke agenda of the DOJ who wants to put you in prison. So, yes, this is absolutely a big win, but this is not the loss for Biden to put this tweet out when he did either. Thank you, Ben Shapiro, for that. On the trial from Politico, 3 Trump co-defendants say that they became false electors at Trump's direction. I'm kind of interested to see what happens with that if they became at Trump's direction, because, again, you still have to come back and show intent that he knew that he lost. From Kyle Cheney, 3 Georgia Republicans who falsely claimed to be electors for Donald Trump and are now charged alongside him in a sprawling racketeering indictment brought by local prosecutors, say they took steps that they did because Trump, then the sitting president, told them to. In a series of court filings this week, those false electors who became part of Trump's last-ditch bid to subvert the 2020 election said that it was Trump and his campaign lawyers who urged them to sign the false documents, claiming they were necessary to preserve Trump's flailing court efforts to reverse his defeat to Joe Biden. The exhortation from Trump's campaign lawyers, they said, amounted to federal government permission to take the actions that they did. The three false electors making the arguments are David Schaefer, former state GOP chair, Sean Still, now a state senator, and Kathleen Latham, a local GOP official. Mr. Still, as a presidential elector, was also acting at the discretion of the incumbent president of the United States, an attorney for Still argued. Thursday, in a court filing seeking to transfer the case against him to a federal court, the president's attorneys instructed Mr. Still and the other contingent electors that they had to meet and cast their ballots on December 14th, 2020. Latham similarly argued that she was acting at the direction of the president, and Schaefer, in a similar petition seeking to move the Fulton County case to federal court, contended that he and the other Republican electors in the 2020 election acted at the direction of the incumbent president and other federal officials. The filings underscore the strange tensions likely to emerge as Trump and his 18 co-defendants march towards trial. The three activists say they should be effectively immune from state prosecution because they believe they were carrying out a federal function with the blessing of the incumbent president and a phalanx of his lawyers. Now they stand charged with racketeering, forgery, and other crimes related to their decision to falsely claim to be legitimate presidential electors. In the weeks after his defeat at the polls to Biden, Trump and his campaign urged state and national GOP officials to assemble slates of would-be presidential electors in 7 states, where Trump had filed legal challenges to the result. Campaign attorneys and a cadre of outside lawyers, including several charged alongside Trump in the indictment, argued that those activists should meet and cast electoral votes on Trump's behalf on the same day the legitimate presidential electors met to vote for Biden. Though the Trump campaign's attorneys told many of them that the effort was necessary to preserve Trump's chances to prevail in ongoing legal challenges, Trump eventually used the existence of these illegitimate slates to provoke a controversy on January 6th, pressuring then Vice President Pence to recognize and count those unofficial electoral votes instead of Biden's. Prosecutors in those states and D.C. have scrutinized the false electors in numerous criminal probes in Michigan. All 16 false electors were recently charged with felonies for their role in the effort. So that in and of itself will be an interesting test of how the legal system works, especially on a state-level constitution. Remember, Article 2, Section 1 says that the states set the parameters and the regulation of their elections. So if there is a provision in the state constitution saying it is illegal to put out an alternate set of electors, then yes, there's a felony there for these 16 people. Funnily enough, I don't think that there's actually that provision in the Michigan State Constitution, so I think that this case is probably going to get, it's not going to get thrown out. The DOJ in Michigan is going to make sure that they get charged and stay in Michigan, but when it gets appealed to a higher court, I do think it's going to get thrown out. But it's going to be based on the understanding of Michigan's constitutional electoral system, which I believe, if I remember correctly, is in the federal district that is represented by one Amy Coney Barrett. The three co-defendants' arguments are part of an effort to pluck their cases out of the state's courts and instead have their legal fate decided by a federal judge in the Northern District of Georgia. They contend that because Trump effectively instructed them to cast ballots based in part on legal advice from campaign and party lawyers, they were acting with the imprimatur of the federal government that entitles them to immunity from state prosecution under the Constitution's Supremacy Clause. They say that's a stretch, by the way. That is a big, big stretch based on the way that Fani Willis structured the case against them. And she structured it that way for a reason, by the way. Because this needs to go through in a state court and a state process. And under the racketeering charge, so Brian Kemp, first and foremost, and then whoever the next Republican president is, can't come out and issue the pardon for any of these people. So I don't know if this is going to go anywhere. It's an interesting idea of how to go back and do this, and what I think happened more than anything else is the prosecuting attorneys sat down with these people, explained the charges, explained what's happening with them and what they're doing, and said, look, all I need you to say is that you were doing this at the direction of Donald Trump. I need to have those words on record. And we will find a way to get you off from this and make everything go away. As RICO, that is harder than you would think, but one of the options to that, if you do go down the stretch, is to recommend that it goes to a federal court because they'd be sitting in front of a Republican judge. So I think a big part, and really honestly, going with RICO with a lot of these people, a big part of what's going on here is they're looking for somebody to flip. Not necessarily, of course, spill the beans and say, oh, he knew he lost all along and this was a corrupt thing of power and he was coming out to do this because he just wanted to take over and be the dictator that he wanted. No, I think they want them to lie. Hey, wouldn't it be nice and easy if you just got out of all of this and, if you just say you were acting completely at the direction of Trump and, I don't care if he actually said this, but just maybe get up on the stand and say that you happen to hear somewhere in the hallway that Trump said, I know that I lost. Nobody likes me. And see all this paperwork here? This all goes away. Don't you want this all to go away? Come on. Just say what we want to hear. We'll take care of the perjury if it's false. Just say what we want to hear. Come on. You know you want to. One of the people that's involved with this, a lone Georgia state lawmaker who faces Fulton charges, claims federal role precludes county prosecution. This is from Jill Nolan of the Georgia Recorder. State Senator Sean Still, who was one of the false electors in 20, is trying to have his case moved to federal court. The Norcross Republican faces 7 counts, including racketeering, impersonating a public officer, forgery, and making false statements in writings. He was booked early Friday morning at the Fulton County Jail and released on $10,000 bond. Still is one of the 19 defendants who were indicted last week in the Fulton County election interference case. Still's attorney, Thomas Bever, argued in a court filing Thursday that a presidential elector is a federal role and that Still was acting as a contingent of the U.S. presidential elector at the December 14th meeting at the Georgia Capitol. These GOP alternate electors cast ballots that day for then-President Trump, who lost in Georgia by nearly 12,000 votes. They met in a conference room at the Capitol even as the state's official electors convened in the state Senate chamber to cast 16 electoral ballots for now President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. In that role, Mr. Still was acting under an officer of the United States, Bever wrote in the court document, filed in the Atlanta-based U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Georgia. Still had not yet been elected to the state Senate when he served as secretary of the fake elector meeting. In 2020, the owner of the Atlanta area pool construction and rafting business would be elected to the Senate 2 years later with about 57% of the vote in a district that sits on the North Atlanta suburbs. As an indicted lawmaker, he now faces the possibility of suspension. Georgia Public Broadcasting explains Brian Kemp, a Republican who did not go along with the efforts to reverse Trump's election defeat in 20, will appoint a commission to decide whether to suspend Still. Now, what'll be interesting about this too, and what Still's lawyers brought forward with this, is the fact that the way they worded it, Still is a federal officer acting under the direction of the president, a federal agent. So, with that being said, my question there would be, would that eliminate the RICO because everything else would need to be moved to a federal court? If the entire racketeering argument was being done by a federal officer, somebody who was a federal officer at the time. And the presidency is the chief law enforcement officer of the country. And as far as I know, there is no federal RICO charge. On top of that, while it would still happen in Georgia, that would take that out of the Fulton County district, out of Fannie Willis's district, or purview, and put this in the federal court in North Georgia, which would be a lot more favorable to Trump. That would be an interesting twist, depending on how the lawyers and how the defense attorneys come back and see the statements here, and especially if these three do get their charges moved to federal court. But that is what we have for that. From the Blaze, judge approves a quick trial date in Georgia RICO case for one defendant, and it could help Trump's defense. From Chris Enlow, a Georgia judge on Thursday approved an October 23rd trial date for Kenneth Chesborough, one of the 19 defendants in the racketeering case. Fulton County Superior Court Judge Scott McAfee set the date after Fulton County DA Fannie Willis filed a motion requesting that all 19 defendants in the case, including former President Trump, begin trial on October 23rd. She submitted that the request after Chesborough invoked his right to a speedy trial, a request which Trump's lawyers strongly objected. Importantly, Chesborough is the only defendant in the case awarded expedited proceedings, at least for now. At this time, these deadlines do not apply to any co-defendant, McAfee said in a court order. In a statement, Chesborough's attorneys said the client will be prepared to move forward with the trial on whatever date the court ultimately sets. The fact that Willis and her team of prosecutors now face the prospect of multiple trials, at least two, but potentially more, could help Trump and his co-defendants. That's because, according to CNN senior legal analyst Ellie Honig, Trump's attorneys will get an inside look at the prosecution's case as it unfolds at Chesborough's trial, thus giving them more time to prepare a robust defense. What do you do if you're Trump's team? You sit back and watch every minute of the first trial. You see all the government's witnesses. You see them cross-examined. You take notes, Honig explained. It's like seeing his other team's playbook open up in front of you. When exactly Trump or the other 17 defendants will go to trial remains unknown. Ultimately, that decision rests with Judge McAfee. Still, the earliest the likely date will be sometime next year. What would be interesting about this, especially given the fact that you have three that are trying to push to move to a federal courthouse, is what would happen if that order came down after you had this trial. Would that be a mistrial? Would that be... I don't know if that would even nullify the verdict at that point, if everything had to be moved then at that point to a federal court. I don't know. A lot of this is really, really unprecedented. So there are going to be a lot of court decisions that come out of this that are going to wind up becoming binding rather, that we have no idea where they're going to go. All right, a little bit of I think propaganda that happened with this from NBC5 WPTV out of West Palm Beach. Zillow amends incorrect listing amid Mar-a-Lago sale rumors. From Jessica Bruno. A Friday morning listing on Zillow showed that Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate was sold on August 4th for $422 million. However, Zillow has since called the listing incorrect and the property is now listed as off the market. If you ask Trump supporters, the former president's Palm Beach estate is a major landmark. That's my Mecca, man! I have to face it and pray every day. They may not say that out loud, but I'm pretty sure there are at least thousands of Trump supporters that believe that. 1 second. Stupid allergies, man. They suck. Been sneezing all day, and now that you get the tingle in your throat because your throat gets irritated when you sneeze so much, and now it's tickling as I talk. It's kind of nice to see his place and be nearby, a Trump supporter said outside of Mar-a-Lago on Friday. Last time we were here, we didn't make it this far, so this is the first stop, another Trump supporter told WPTV. The 58-bedroom, 33-bathroom estate is the spotlight as rumors swirl that the property was sold or transferred to a company owned by Trump's son, Don Jr. The rumor was fueled by a Friday morning post on Zillow showing a $422 million sale, which has since been deleted. The timing, I think, is something that struck for all of us. Jason Weiser, a former prosecutor and current partner at Schuler, Weiser, Zoller, Overbeck, and Baxter, said, just days before the indictment in Georgia, Here you are transferring your Mar-a-Lago property, and you're transferring it to a company owned by your son. On Friday afternoon, Trump's son Eric posted on the social media site X, formerly known as Twitter, saying in part Zillow has corrected their listing. Mar-a-Lago has not been sold or transferred in any regard. You want to know what I bet happened? And again, this is propaganda, and this is something to try to push the conversation and say that this is a person who knows he's going down. He knows that he's going to be indicted and arrested, and he's got to make sure that they can't come back and seize his property. I'm willing to bet that, and Zillow's probably never going to say this out loud. They're never going to say this in a statement. They're just going to say it was an accident and a mistake. If I was a betting man, and I do that occasionally actually, but if I was a betting man, I would say that a rogue employee got into the code and actually, manually entered the data that it was sold at $422 million on August 4th. And then that person was probably the one who also broke the news and talked about it on X, formerly known as Twitter. And then, of course, again, we get the rumors swirling and everything else that, oh, well, he transferred it out because he knows he's going to prison. It's a demoralization campaign is what it is. I would actually probably put money on the fact that that's how that happened. That's exactly what happened with that. And we've seen stuff like that happen before. Like the rogue employee at formerly Twitter, now X, who banned Trump's account before X turned around and brought it back. Well, Twitter came around and brought it back immediately. Banned and deleted Trump's account while he was still the sitting president. And Twitter came out and said, no, it wasn't us, it was a rogue employee. Guarantee that's what happened here too. So, that is what they have for that from Newsweek. I'm going to skip the Newsweek one because we got the information from the incorrect listing. Let's talk the other side of the aisle. Let's talk about Biden. Fritz Farrow on X. Biden's campaign will not commit that to debating whomever the Republicans nominate next year. We've had a conversation about that at all. Sorry, we have not had a conversation about that at all. I'm sure one day we will, but it's not today, and I don't have any news on that, co-chair Cedric Richmond told reporters. Asked by ABC News why Biden's not debating his Democratic primary challengers Marianne Williamson and RFK Jr., Richmond says President Biden is the Democratic nominee. Now, before we get into the article that goes with this, because there is some writing that goes with this as well, I will remind you that it is not uncommon in any stretch of the imagination for the incumbent to not debate. The incumbent is typically running the country at the time, so we have firsthand knowledge at that person's policies. And I mean, this is something that, this is not just in modern times. This is just something that doesn't happen, and it hasn't happened in history. Second term Bush didn't debate, and there were people that ran against him. They did try to primary him. Second term Clinton didn't debate. Second term Obama didn't debate. And yes, there were people that tried to primary second term Obama too. Just about every single incumbent in history has had some also ran at some point, who came in and tried to challenge their power. And they just don't debate. Again, because they don't need to come back in and try to play pretend on what their policies would be in the future. We can see their policies. They're doing them at the time. And with the Donald, there's some justification to that too, because he's a technical incumbent as well. But again, with that one, and I talked about this on debate night, I think the big one for Donald is the fact that his lawyers just didn't want him to come up there and have Ron DeSantis ask him pointedly about something that's happening in his case, or point him to make an attack at Pence, which would be in violation of the terms of his bond. But yeah, there's no reason for Biden debate. And it's not because of the fact that he's so far ahead. It's not because of what Richmond said, where he's already the nominee or anything else like that. It's the fact that we don't have to give him hypotheticals about his policies. They're on display for us currently. Now, with that being said, I have strongly always been an advocate of the incumbent should still debate. If there's somebody challenging them, they should still get up and debate. They should. Yes, even in the primaries. They should get up and debate in the primaries. But it would be a break of decades and possibly centuries of tradition. So I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. Let's read one from Fox News. Biden campaign co-chair declares President Democratic nominee before single vote cast. From Houston Keene. The Biden-Harris campaign co-chair declared President Biden the Democratic nominee for president before a single vote has been cast. Former Biden aide Cedric Richmond on Wednesday said that Biden is not debating for his top spot on the blue presidential ticket and is already the nominee. That is not actually determined. President Biden is the nominee along with Vice President Harris, Richmond said, and if you look at both parties, when they have an incumbent president, that incoming president participates in no debates, and there's no primary on our side when there's a primary. But the key to that is the fact that we've already endorsed President Biden, the Democratic National Committee senior advisor said. Richmond said that no party has done it, going back to Presidents Reagan and Ford, adding, it's just something that's been well settled. And it's just another issue that people want to use as a distraction from us focusing on still delivering for the American people, which you haven't, by the way, and making sure that we address the issues and the challenges they face, Richmond said. Typically, the party in control of the White House will not hold presidential debates and will throw their hat behind the current president. Which, again, I don't like the tradition of that. I think that they should debate anybody who comes up and challenges them, but, I mean, we have a tradition out there. So, I don't get my way. And it would take one very courageous volunteer to come back up and change that tradition. In a situation where they typically don't have to do it. So, there's that. And again, one of the big things for me is the fact that there's actually no guarantee that Biden is the nominee. There's no guarantee that Biden makes it to Election Day. He is 80 years old. With Alzheimer's. With a growing coalition of people that are asking him to step aside. So, that is what we have for that. Speaking of being 80 years old with Alzheimer's, from the New York Post, Biden takes heat for spending 40% of his days in office on vacation. This is an ongoing argument that never ever stops. And it's a really stupid argument, not based on the fact that I don't think that the president should be working for the people more often than he typically is. But I mean, this was a thing during the Obama admin, this was a thing during Bush 2, and these I can actually remember because I was there for these. This was a thing during Trump. This has always been a thing. Like, legitimately, this has always been a thing. President Biden went golfing almost every single week. And his religious followers praised him for it and thought he was running the country so well that he didn't have to go back out and be out there every day. And it was a wonderful thing. And Republicans at the time, well, the meme went around that there was the aircraft carrier called the USS Obama, and it had a golf course on it. When Trump got into office, Republicans forgot about the fact that they were so hard on Obama for the fact that he was always out golfing, and they praised Trump for the fact that, well, he was running the country, and they forgot about the fact that he went out and golfed. Quite often, actually. But the Democrats didn't forget, and they reminded him of that constantly and said that, yeah, if we ever had a person who vacations as much as Trump and golfs as much as Trump, and that's bad. And now Biden has been on vacation for 40% of his presidency. Golfing and going to the beach and riding bikes poorly and things like that. He gets criticized by the right for being on vacation all the time. And the left thinks that it's a glowing, wonderful thing and he's running the country. This is an ongoing thing. This is not a new thing. It's just the people who support the opposite party, that's what's in power, don't think the president works hard enough. End of story. But from the New York Post, maybe it's all he ever wanted. President Biden is taking heat for spending 40% of his days in office on vacation after he was away from the White House for 2/3 of August. Do I think that it's right? No. Do I think Democrats are going to do anything about it? No. Biden's weekend Johnson vacation spanned 234 days, with 7 in 10 of them spent at his homes in Wilmington and Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, out of 589 days in office. Romney McDaniel told the Post that Republicans believe it's a winning campaign issue. Really? Because they called the Mar-a-Lago the Southern White House. And again, as long as the work is getting done, I don't really care how the president spends his time. That's one thing for me. I don't give a damn how the president spends his time, as long as the work is getting done. And that's for both parties. I wish they'd be doing a little bit less work and leaving us alone more often, and that's for both parties. Alongside concerns over the effects of Biden-era spending, including Democrats' $1.9 trillion stimulus package last year, and this year's $437 billion environmental and health care bill. Yes, see, Ronna Romney? That's what you need to be focusing on, Ronna Romney. Not how often Biden's on vacation. Voters want Republicans who actually show up to work to dig America out of Biden's recession, secure the southern border, and put an end to reckless spending of taxpayer dollars, McDaniel said. Soon, Democrats will be able to join Biden on his weekly vacations when America will vote them out in less than 70 days, she added, referring to the midterm congressional elections. How old is this article? Holy crap, this is for last year. How did this show up on the stack? I'll have to go check my sources for that. I think I might have taken that, though, from one of the Discord servers that I'm in. So this, yeah, because this is a year-old article. Almost to the day. But regardless, again, this is an ongoing thing. This is something that every president has to deal with. Mowgli says Biden is on the stage with his shirt on top of his head, both hands raised, asking Kennedy if he's challenging me. Oh my god, that is a hilarious image. Arvolt, if you're listening, make a meme out of this. Make a meme of Biden asking Kennedy, are you threatening me? Are you challenging me? And Arvolt will do it too, by the way. And I know he doesn't listen live, but I know he'll listen back on the replay. Then asked for TP for my bunghole. Yeah, how dare the president vacation, golf, and relax? Bill played the gold and hit another hole in his tenure in office. Oh, he played gold and hit other holes in his tenure in office. Oh, okay, you typoed that one. Bill played golf and hit other holes in his tenure in office. Yeah. Absolutely. Speaking of Biden, in other news from RNC Research, Biden says he just signed off on a funding request for a new pinkopox vaccine that is necessary that works. Let's listen.
Mr. President, can you say anything about the uptick of COVID cases and the new variant?
Yes, I can. Matter of fact, I signed off this morning on a proposal we have to present to the Congress a request for additional funding for a new vaccine that is necessary, that works. And tentatively, not decided finally yet, tentatively it is recommended that, it will likely be recommended that everybody get it, no matter whether they got it before or not.
Mr. President, can you say...
Trust me, if he's going to spend that kind of money on the new jabby jab, he's going to want you to take it. By force, if necessary. From Axios. Biden admin pumps money into developing a new vaccine, from Peter Sullivan. The Biden admin on Tuesday announced the first funding towards the $5 billion project aimed at developing the next generation of pinkpox vaccines and treatments. By the way, this is a thing that's going to be going on and on and on forever. The project is intended to support vaccines that are no longer lasting and more protective against the mutating virus, as well as better options like more effective monoclonal antibodies after some were sidelined by the emergence of new variants. Remember, this is a virus that's so resilient that it can get... Maybe I shouldn't say this on YouTube. That might be construed as medical information. We're not going to use that meme. We're not going to do that. Project NextGen is the long-term follow-up to Operation Warp Speed, which delivered the pinkpox vaccines and treatments in record time. You know why he's doing this, by the way? It has nothing to do with effectiveness or anything else like that. It's the fact that he wants to have all the vaccines on him and not Trump being able to take the credit for them. The $1.4 billion in awards announced Tuesday includes $1 billion for clinical trials for more advanced vaccines. The idea is to do preparatory work so the trials can move faster once the specific vaccine candidates are chosen. $326 million is going to Regeneron for work on the monoclonal antibody that can help prevent the pinkpox in people who do not respond well to the jabby jab. Which is going to be nobody, by the way, because everybody's going to respond well to it. Biden promises some of the remaining funds will go towards better vaccine manufacturing technology, such as a nasal spray that in theory could guard better against infection. Don O'Connell, the Assistant Secretary of Health and Human Services, said more awards are expected before the end of the fiscal year. The moves are strengthening us before whatever the pinkpox virus brings next, she said. So, yep, they're going to pump a bunch of money into that. The Daily Mail following up on this one, saying Biden says new jabby jabs are likely to be recommended to every American this fall, including children amid an upswing in infections. You didn't think that this authoritarian power grab was going away, did you? From Luke Andrews and Caitlin Tilley, health reporters for DailyMail.com. President Biden has said he will recommend that all Americans roll up their sleeves for an updated pinkpox vaccine this fall. Wait, does that mean I don't have to get it? Because I would actually have had to have the first one for it to be updated, right? Biden said today that he has signed off on a proposal to present to Congress for extra funding for a new jabby jab, which will likely be recommended to everyone over the age of 5. And a spokesperson for the CDC yesterday revealed plans to offer the shots by mid-September. The vaccines, made by Pfizer, Moderna, and Novavax, target the previously dominant XBB versions. But officials say they will provide robust protection against Eris, America's currently most dominant strain. It is also thought that they will bolster immunity against BA.2.86, which has sparked concerns over a future wave of infections. Hold on. There is something that we do need to remember about this, and I know I put it in the Discord, I just gotta remember where. I think I put it in articles, which I've actually got to back up a bit for because I put a lot of stuff in articles worth investigating. Yep, there it is. Cernovich, and I think I put this up on the day that I found this, but Daily Mail points out that the new jabby jab is going to be made by Pfizer and Moderna. And over here on X, Cernovich reminds you that check the Pfizer stock price and you'll see why the pinkpox is back. Down year to date, so this is going all the way back to January as he stretched this back out. Isn't it funny that Pfizer and Moderna are going to be the ones who get preferential treatment on this? I'd still like to see the invoice for the first round of Jabby Jab. The shots, which use mRNA or protein-based technology, are cleared for over 12s and have emergency use authorization for younger groups, but other countries, like the UK, plan to offer boosters to only over 65s. Most Americans will be able to get them for free on their health insurance, though there may be a fee for vaccine administration and a potential physician visit fee. What do you want to bet that that's going to be picked up by the taxpayer too? Calling it right now. Calling it in the air. Vaccine uptake continues to wane in America amid anti-vax conspiracy theories and a little sign that further shots will benefit healthy middle-aged adults. When the Jabby Jabs were initially rolled out, tens of millions did not come forward to get the Jabby Jab. Uptake dipped further during the first wave of boosters in September 2021, targeted at the Wuhan strain. And the following winter, with Jabby Jabs targeted against the then-dominant Ermagerd variant, plus the Wuhan virus, with only 18% of eligible Americans coming forward to get them. That's because a lot of people looked at this and figured out that it was something that I can absolutely 100% not say on YouTube. And again, show me the invoice that Pfizer and Moderna turned in to the U.S. government to make it free at the point of injection. Let's talk about John Kerry. Starting with this one from Sky News, Sky's Hannah Thomas Peter speaks to U.S. climate envoy John Kerry about drilling in the UK and US. Let's listen. It's a short little video clip.
The Climate Change Committee has just said that this country has lost its clear global leadership on climate change, backtracking on fossil fuel commitments, consenting a new coal mine, supporting new oil and gas in the North Sea. It's a real problem that the UK is heading in that direction, isn't it?
Well, it depends what the direction really is. My understanding from UK officials is that they are promising to stay on the track and on the target of their reductions. There will be drilling. We are drilling too. Others are, because there's a certain demand that is built into our economies right now.
Is new extraction necessary, though?
When you say new extraction, do you have to continue to pump? Yes, you do. Do you need to explore and go out and lease new leaseholds? I doubt it if you're doing the other things that you need to do and that could be done. The International Energy Agency tells us again and again that we have the technology necessary to meet our 2030 goals. We're just not deploying all of it because people are more comfortable, more relaxed, and business as usual with the current production levels of oil and gas. That has to change. We do have to begin to restrain and transition faster, but you can't just shut down an economy overnight. You don't want to do that. You don't want to ever shut down the economy. You want to transition your economy.
The climate.
Okay, I have been hearing and analyzing politics for 6 years. There are absolutely people who want to shut down the economy. And they're in the highest levels of government to transition away from fossil fuels. And if you don't believe that, you're lying to yourself. Yes, people are getting comfortable. They're not comfortable enough that they have a private jet like I do, that I took to date to this interview with just me and some of my security detail on board. But people are getting comfortable in the level of fossil fuels, and I will remind you over and over again. Now, and some of this, by the way, did come from necessity because of the fact that people like John Kerry were throttling the fuel of our economy, the lifeblood of our economy, to the point that it got so expensive you couldn't afford to use it in the rates that you were. And we got massive innovations that led to incredible amounts of fuel economy. To the point where, again, you can have a full-size V8 pickup truck that gets 22 miles to the gallon. And cars are getting 40, 50 miles to the gallon. Now, of course, that's after some of the fuel economy has dropped away. Because remember, you had the old Civics back in the 80s that could get 50 to 60 miles a gallon with a carburetor. And then as fuel injection and derate became more and more of a thing because of Environmental Protection Agency issues, that fuel economy slowly dropped to the point where it still didn't get below 30, really, on that particular model of vehicle. But then as we engineered better clearances, better tolerances, better fuel delivery systems, and of course better ignition systems, you saw that start to climb back up. To the point where, again, you're not getting that 50 again until you start going hybrid, which is sad because a carbureted car with a 4-cylinder, 1.2 liter 4-cylinder engine got better fuel economy than a fucking hybrid. There is innovation, and we are building way better stuff because we're trying to pinch every last penny and not spend as much energy. You know what's really funny? Televisions. That's one that I like to use a lot. Back when we all had the old cathode ray. When I was living, the last place I lived in Kenosha, I had a massive, and I mean the screen was actually only, I think, 30 inches. It was a 30-inch screen, but it was that massive cathode ray tube TV that was regular aspect ratio, 4:3 aspect ratio, and it was like this deep. I don't know, with the way my webcam is pitched, you can't really tell where I'm doing, but I'm like 3 feet deep. And that thing was an energy hog. That thing took so much electricity, you couldn't even begin to believe what the electric bill looked like at the time. And now I've got, in front of me, and my computer screen at the time too, because I had an old tower. I didn't have a laptop yet, but my computer screen was also the old cathode ray tube computer screen, and that was on all the time, obviously, because I was typically doing blogging, working, and other things with my computer. And I had a little mini cathode ray tube TV in my bedroom as well. So 3 screens that were just energy hogs, absolute energy hogs. Whereas now, I've just got 3 in front of me, plus, there's one over here behind me. I don't know if you can see it in the webcam shot or not, that living room TV, and that's another 24-inch, and I've got a 32-inch in my bedroom that are pretty much typically always on, just based on the fact, my computer screens are always on, and then with the Fire Stick, the one TV in the bedroom just goes into standby mode, essentially. But it's still technically on. And they don't even use, they sip energy. We keep innovating instead of just trying to force ourselves into different fuels and energy sources. One of the biggest innovations in energy, the reason that I'm going with this, I know it sounds like I'm rambling right now, but the reason I'm going with this is the fact that, it comes down to the point where we want to save energy, so we get Energy Star refrigerators and air conditioners and microwaves if you happen to use a microwave, which I don't. I use the toaster oven. But we make everything just insanely more efficient. If you guys ever pop into KTZed stream, ask her about her stove and how fast it boils water. It's induction. It uses no energy or electricity. And it'll boil water faster than the kettle that she has on the counter that is made specifically for boiling water. And if you ever get a chance to go and visit her at her home, she'll show it to you too. All right, from Amanpour, CNN, Another John Kerry video. John Kerry, U.S. is not sitting around waiting for a breakthrough with China on climate.
John Kerry, welcome to the program. We appreciate it. You know, in your speech, you spoke about how we have already passed tipping points, moments, as you call them, of irreversibility. But you also extolled progress. Where is that key progress happening? Because I have to tell you, for most of us looking at what is going on across the planet, we do not see progress.
Well, I can completely understand that, Paula, and indeed, the signals coming from Mother Nature are pretty dramatic. But I didn't say that we have passed them. I said that the scientists are telling us that there are these tipping points, and we may well be at several of them. We don't know specifically, but the key is, if you know you're coming up to this critical moment, prudent governance, cautionary principles would say, be careful and do what you need to do. I was really trying to underscore the urgency of our moving now, which is coming from all quarters, scientists, people all around the world. We need to move. But there are signs of great things happening. First of all, there's more money being expended and invested in new technology in the new directions by about $1.7 trillion. We're seeing an enormous increase in electric vehicles happening much faster than people thought it would be. That's going to have an impact on demand of gasoline. And as it continues, it will have a profound impact on capital allocation to alternative, renewable, clean energy. And I think that if you look at the technologies and the number of companies that are coming to the table, the shipping industry is moving into, no carbon propulsion, making new ships in order to do that. The air industry is working on the issue of sustainable aviation fuel. Companies around the world have now been dealing with their own production of emissions in their plants, in their offices, and there are reductions taking place. So I think you would find that there's an element of optimism that is now coming forward, and I think we can hasten that if we take key steps for the meeting in Dubai in December.
But let's talk about that leadership and essentially U.S. leadership. I want you to listen now to U.S. climatologist Michael Mann, who I spoke to earlier, talking about how the U.S. has to, along with other nations, forego fossil fuels. Listen.
We've got to have our own house in order. We've got to be doing enough so that we can convince India that is worth their while in skipping that fossil fuel phase of their economic development and going directly to renewable energy. We've got to make it worth their while, and that means there have to be even greater commitments from the industrial countries to get these industrializing countries to come on board, and that's what this next conference is all going to be about later this year.
And Secretary Kerry,
I can't do any more of that stupidity. So we need to turn ourselves entirely over to electrical. We won't talk about where the electricity is coming from, but we need to go and turn everything that we do in our system down over to electric and wind power and everything else, so we can convince India to completely forgo the fossil fuel point of their industrial revolution. Are you stupid? They're not going to do that. Do you know why they're not going to do that? Because they can snipe manufacturing from this country left and right based on the fact that they don't have an EPA that shuts them down. And let's be realistic. A lot of us in most of the more urban areas of Calcutta would probably not last for very long breathing the air. We'd at least feel somewhat queasy. And they don't care. China, that's the other one. You think you're going to go back and tell China that they need to go back and do better because we're doing better? You go, yeah, send Greta over there. How dare you? How dare you? You stole my dreams. Okay, you're in the work camp. Shut up. Greta, we don't know who this Greta person is. Who are you asking us about that? We never saw this girl. Maybe check the flight logs or something. We never saw this girl. But they think that they're going to do it. Have fun. How dare you? Oh, you've stolen my dreams! Spartan says, I think in 30 years we'll actually be able to get electric energy on a massive scale from space. Lightweight satellites in space that move energy from space to Earth. To be able to convert radiation to electricity, I mean, the technology is there. It's the efficiency and transfer that I would question, obviously. It's good in theory, and I know what you're talking about, and I've looked into some before, but the technology to put it into practice, I think is still maybe more than 30 years out. I like the idea, though. They already have prototypes that work. I don't know. I need to look a little bit more into that. Alright, we have got... Where are we at? 1.5. We've got more stuff to go over. Let's talk about more stuff. Ramaswamy! Vivek Ramaswamy celebrates his immigrant family while pushing far-right border policies. From Sakshi Venkatraman. Well, that's because pretty much every other nation in the world has some sort of immigration policy, with the exception of the EU. After Vivek Ramaswamy's explosive performance at Wednesday night's Republican presidential debate in Milwaukee, experts say it's clear that his star is on the rise, but on that ascent they warn, the tech millionaire is feeding dangerous ideas about immigration. Standing near the center stage, Ramaswamy drew the most incoming fire from his fellow candidates, most of whom were coming there looking for a fight and didn't have Trump to be their punching bag. While he used little of his time to talk about his personal background, experts noted that his parents' immigrant story became a tool for him at some key moments. My parents came to this country with no money 40 years ago, he said in his opening. I have gone on to found a multi-billion-dollar company. It's rhetoric that has long been used on the right, even by some of Ramaswamy's contemporaries like Nikki Haley, Lady Bush, to paint a picture of Asian American immigrants as inherently successful and hardworking, especially compared to other minority groups, said Karthik Ramakrishnan, the founder of AAPI Data, a nonprofit policy and research group. Ramaswamy has a very selective reading of the immigrant experience, he said. Especially notable, he said, was the way Ramaswamy went on to lambaste undocumented immigrants crossing the southern border, which he described as an invasion. We will close the southern border where criminals are coming in every day, Ramaswamy 38 said at the debate. While that language isn't new to the GOP playbook, Ramaswamy has at times gone further than some of his rivals. He advocated for getting rid of lottery-based visas in favor of meritocratic admissions. He also advocated for the use of military force to secure the border. Coming from a brown person and a child of immigrants, it paints a distorted view of the U.S. immigration system, Ramakrishnan said. There's this notion of good immigrant versus the bad immigrant, the people who come here the right way versus the wrong way, he said. Our immigration system is fundamentally broken. Adult relatives of immigrants from India have to wait 20 years or more to get their visa. Ramaswamy's senior advisor and comms director, Tricia McLaughlin, doubled down on his statements. Yes, there's a right way to enter the country and the wrong way to enter the country, she told NBC News. That's not a myth or a stereotype, that's a fact. Though rhetoric like that might help bolster Ramaswamy's performance in the Republican field, it doesn't paint a full picture of the complexities of immigration to the U.S. Even South Asian immigration, he said. So now, of course, Ramaswamy is going to be the far right because he believes in an immigration policy. I will reiterate my take on Vivek Ramaswamy, especially after seeing him in action. I don't think Vivek Ramaswamy is going to be president, and I don't think he's running to be the president. I know this is an unpopular opinion among his big mega fans. I don't think he's running to be the president. I never have. He is running, number one, to get some recognition so that when he goes off and starts another business, a bunch of right-wingers just go out and buy his stuff because we want to support brown right-wing person. But furthermore, he is adding value. As much as people try to say, oh, well, he's copycatting Obama. He's he's just doing what Obama did, and he's being ChatGPT and this and that and the next thing. Yeah, well, ChatGPT or not, Chris Christie, he got you and Nikki Haley to both say the quiet part out loud in your warmongering stance and your stance on using the federal government to crack down on your political dissent. So, whether or not he is just repeating the lines or plagiarizing, he pulled the worst out of you. And that is going to be his purpose in this election cycle. He's not going to be the president in 24. You know what's really scary is he might be in 28, but he's not going to be in 24. I can tell you that right off the bat. And I don't think he's running to be. Again, I think he's doing the Andrew Yang playbook, where he's going out and making a big name for himself so he can go sell a bunch of books and a bunch of merch and get a cult following, which he is garnering, by the way, who will buy whatever it is that he puts out, no matter how crappy it is or how unnecessary it is. And also getting people to say the quiet part out loud. Yeah, geothermal is epic. That depends on location, though. Was it, it's one of the Northern Triangle countries where they're using geothermal energy to run a Bitcoin mining operation and basically holding their country's economy up on that, using their geothermal and Bitcoin mining. Which is an odd and interesting way to do it, of course. Mogwai says, you mean Skinny Cal Pen? Yes. Spartan says, VTech will close the border with Mexico and import 50% of India. Possibly. Let's talk some Musk stuff. Get rid of that. From Benzinga. No, not Sheldon's catchphrase. That's Buzzinga. From Benzinga, Elon Musk declares war on Soros-funded NGOs, promises a legal battle to defend free speech. From Ananya Gairola, who is a staff writer for Benzinga. Elon Musk intends to launch a high-stake legal action against billionaire investor and philanthropist George Soros-funded NGOs. On Wednesday, Musk, who acquired Twitter, now rebranded as X, made his announcement in response to a user Michael Schellenberger's post on the platform. Schellenberger said that Soros-funded NGOs have been deliberately spreading false information about increasing hate incidents to advocate for stricter limitations on free expression, along with a screenshot of a report published by Public and written by Irish journalist Ben Scalin. Replying to him, the tech billionaire announced, X will be filing a legal action to stop this. Can't wait for the discovery to start. The article in question alleged that NGOs supported by Soros' Open Society foundations promote a censorship agenda in Ireland and Scotland, including police searches of private residencies and personal devices. While the report does not explicitly identify which Soros-funded NGOs are involved in this alleged censorship campaign, it raises questions about the accuracy of hate crime reporting. It also indicated that increased reported incidences may not necessarily signify a genuine rise in hate crimes, pointing to how the low threshold for classifying an act as a hate offense, which often requires minimal evidence beyond an individual's claims. No, it requires no evidence beyond an individual's claims. The Open Society Foundations, established by Soros, annually dedicates around $1.5 billion to champion various causes encompassing global initiatives to uphold human rights and advance democratic principles. So he is going into what is probably going to be the fight of his life to make sure that he can allow anybody to say what it is that they want, with certain conditions, of course, on X. From the New York Post, feds sue Elon Musk SpaceX for allegedly shunning refugees and asylum seekers. From John Christensen, Mogwa says Indian people would hate it here and wouldn't be able to breathe in LA or San Francisco. Why? It's probably cleaner than Calcutta. The Biden admin sued Elon-owned rocket and satellite company SpaceX on Thursday for allegedly discriminating against asylum seekers and refugees in hiring. The lawsuit alleges that from at least September 2018 to May 2022, SpaceX routinely discouraged asylees and refugees from applying and refused to hire them or consider them because of their citizenship status in violation of the Immigration and Nationality Act, the DOJ said in a statement. But you can do that. It specifically says that on the I-9. I've read the I-9 numerous times. In job postings and public statements over several years, SpaceX wrongly claimed that under federal regulations, known as export control laws, SpaceX could hire only U.S. citizens and lawful permanent residents, sometimes referred to as green card holders, the DOJ said. No, that's not the export control law. That's the I-9 form. I know, I've read it. The laws bar foreign persons from being given access to export-controlled items without approval from the State Department or Department of Commerce, but permits U.S. persons, including citizens, residents, refugees, and asylum seekers, according to the lawsuit. Immigrants had virtually no chance at being fairly considered or hired for a job at SpaceX, the lawsuit states, saying the company's hiring practices were routine, widespread, and long-standing, and harmed asylees and refugees. The DOJ also pointed to online posts from the company's billionaire owner as examples of discriminatory public statements. Because of course they did. The lawsuit cited a June 2020 post on X, formerly called Twitter, by CEO Musk, to his then 36 million followers that said, U.S. law requires at least a green card to be hired at SpaceX as rockets are advanced weapons technology. I want to double check that because I actually think that's true. At an international conference in September 2016, Musk also said that SpaceX hires require special permission from the Secretary of Defense or Secretary of State to comply with international traffic in arms regulation, the suit notes. Several recruiters also cited the law to reject applicants between 2018 and 2022. SpaceX hired just one asylum seeker 4 months after the DOJ began investigating the company. Federal agencies such as NASA have awarded the company billions of dollars in contracts for communications and satellite technologies, which is actually going to throw a wrench into Elon's defense because of the fact that he's taking on government contracts. I think he can still win this, but with SpaceX taking government contracts, I think it's going to be a more uphill battle to do so. I would have to read the suit and the statutes involved in this to be sure, but I do think he can win this. Elon reacts to DOJ weaponization against him from Tim Meads. After the DOJ announced the lawsuit against SpaceX for allegedly preferring to hire Americans and legal citizens, the company's owner chose to speak out. On Friday, Musk responded to a tweet letting the world know how he truly feels about the DOJ's lawsuit. If you speak up against the illiberal regime, they find other ways to go after you, Palantir co-founder Joel Lonsdale said. They hope to scare others not to speak out like Elon Musk. The DOJ sued Palantir for nonsense after the co-founder Peter Thiel spoke at the 2016 Republican convention too. Indeed, shortly after Thiel spoke at the 2016 RNC, the Department of Labor sued his company for alleged racial discrimination. On Friday, Musk responded to Lonsdale, "The weaponization of the government agencies needs to stop. This fundamentally undermines the public faith in the justice system." Dude, that's gone. And as reported yesterday, shortly after Musk purchased the social media platform, President Brandon ominously remarked that Musk's business transactions were worth being looked at. When asked how he would go about doing that, Biden chuckled, "There's a lot of ways."
Mr. President, do you think Elon Musk is a threat to U.S. national security, and should the U.S. and with the tools you have investigate his joint acquisition of Twitter with foreign governments, which include the Saudis?
Hey, come on, man.
I think that Elon Musk's cooperation and/or technical relationships with other countries is worthy of being looked at. Whether or not he is doing anything inappropriate, I'm not suggesting that. I'm suggesting that it's worth being looked at. But that's all I'll say. There's a lot of ways.
There's a lot of ways. The left now considers Musk a political enemy, whether he intended to earn their ire or not. That's because he supports the First Amendment. The tech entrepreneur is right about the weaponization of the government needs to stop, but appealing to the left's alleged good nature will not stop the abuse. No, it will not. That's why I don't even try. When somebody asks me how I feel about the government, I tell them, fuck the government. Alright, some international news. From CBS, Ukraine pilots arrive in the U.S. for F-16 fighter jet training next month, from Eleanor Watson. A small number of Ukrainian pilots and support personnel will arrive in the U.S. next month for F-16 training, the Pentagon announced on Thursday. The group will start supplemental English language training in Texas at Lackland Air Force Base in September, and then in October to head to Morris Air National Guard Base in Arizona for training on F-16s. Brigadier General Patrick Ryder, the Pentagon press secretary, said in a news briefing. Yeah, we're totally not going into war for this country. I'm still leaning towards we're seeing Elon Musk's supervillain origin story. Or superhero, one of the two. The training in the US is expected to run concurrently with a program led by Denmark and the Netherlands. In Europe last week, the Pentagon said it would host training for the US if capacity was met in Europe, but officials have since decided it's faster to go ahead and offer up training. We know the Danes and the Dutch prepare to train these pilots, that at a certain point in time in the future capacity will be reached so preemptively. Acknowledging that and leading forward in order to assist with this effort is the impetus for why we're doing this right now, Ryder said. The announcement comes after the Biden admin gave assurances last week the U.S. would expedite transfers of F-16s to Ukraine once the training is complete. The Ukrainians for months have been asking for the jets to help in their fight against Russia's invasion. President Biden in May said he would greenlight the F-16s for Ukraine for its long-term defense. The Pentagon have maintained the fighter jets are not meant for the country's counteroffensive. But mysteriously, they're going to be used for this. That's like saying that the federal funding that's going to Planned Parenthood is not being used for abortions because it's totally illegal to use federal funding for abortions. It's just happening to show up in their coffers, and they're doing abortions. You know what the worst part is people actually believe this bullshit. Alright, some business news for you. Subway has been sold for billions in one of the biggest fast food acquisitions ever. From Doc Llewellyn. Subway, eat fresh. A family-owned business of nearly 60 years that has other sandwich shops in its portfolio has been acquired by private equity firm Roark Capital. The sandwich company announced in a press release on Thursday that it had received an offer from Roark. The Wall Street Journal reported that Roark offered $9.6 billion for the sale, which originally was listed at $10 billion back in February. Subway must meet cash flow milestones within 2 or more years after the deal is finalized to pay the entire $8.95 billion deal price, according to Reuters. The deal does not include the earnout. According to CNN, the acquisition by Roark, a significant event in the fast food industry. The company boasts a $37 billion asset value and an extensive food portfolio, with investments in brands such as Arby's, Auntie Annie's, Buffalo Wild Wings, Carvel, Sonic, and many others. Subway says it will continue to prioritize sales growth, menu innovation, restaurant modernization, enhancement of its guest experiences, and global expansion. Will they make the cold cut combo that doesn't make you sick? I'm going to tell you right off the bat, I actually enjoy Subway a lot. I don't eat it as much as I used to, number one, because of low carb diet, and number two, because of the fact that I got insanely sick of a cold cut combo in South Milwaukee. Oak Creek, actually. Like, off my feet for 2 days, except to get up to go to the bathroom. I lost 7 pounds in 2 days over that one. But I still love this. Like, when I went to Georgia the last time, somewhere in Illinois, I stopped and I grabbed a meatball sub. And man, dude, that just hit the spot. Their meatballs are outstanding. They have a lot of really good sandwiches now, too. Even when they did the update on the meats and everything, too. Like, it's not the cheap throw-it-on white bread sandwich that it used to be. It is a really good sandwich. I will give them that. Especially if, like, you're just looking for something quick to go by. Unfortunately, $5 footlong doesn't work anymore, but, I mean, it's a decent sandwich. I debated, by the way, because I'm traveling tomorrow, going and grabbing a Subway breakfast when I saw this article. Just because I remember it being really good, and I haven't had it in years. But it is being acquired. We will see what happens with it and where it goes. From NBC News, Paper and I got a back-to-back from NBC. We're not doing Twitter trending tonight either. That is one of the weakest closing segments that we've ever had, so I'm just going to go out to the end. So we got 13 more minutes. Let's see what else we can figure out. Paper and bamboo straws contain PFAS chemicals more often than plastic straws do, study finds. From Aria Bendix. Some paper and bamboo straws contain so-called forever chemicals that could make them a less than ideal alternative to plastic, researchers have found. Scientists in Belgium recently tested dozens of straws from supermarkets, retail stores, and fast food restaurants in the country, and found that the majority contained PFAS, a family of synthetic chemicals used in the manufacture of consumer goods, because they can resist stains, grease, and water. Yum! The researchers sampled 39 brands of straws made of paper, bamboo, glass, stainless steel, and plastic. Of those, 27 were found to contain PFAS, although the concentrations were low. The results were published Thursday in the Journal of Food Additives and Contaminants. PFAS, an acronym for per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, are often referred to as forever chemicals because they linger almost permanently in air, water, and soil. They're frequently detected in food wrappers, cosmetics, carpet, furniture, textiles such as raincoats or workout clothes. Of the straws tested in the study, those made of paper were the most likely to contain PFAS. The chemicals were detected in 18 out of 20 brands. 4 out of 5 bamboo straws sampled contained PFAS, compared to 3 out of the 4 plastic straws and 2 out of 5 glass straws. All 5 stainless steel straws analyzed were PFAS free, while they're also permanent, of course. So that paper straw that Starbucks insists that you have, apparently that isn't as good for you as you think. I have used a paper straw once. The Quick Trip in Redacted, where I used to live, ran one box of paper straws through their fountain drink program. And I picked one up and I had the plastic straw and I looked at that and I actually tweeted at Quick Trip at the time and I said, if you don't fix this and go back to plastic straws, you will lose me as a fountain drink customer. And a lot of people are with me on this. I will buy the plastic stuff that you have less of a margin over. Proudly, by the way. But it turns out this is not necessarily as environmentally friendly as you thought. Alright, what else do we have from NPC? Some news out of South Carolina. South Carolina's... the title of this is just completely disingenuous. South Carolina's all-male Supreme Court upholds a 6-week abortion ban. From Bracy Harris. Just months after the exit of its sole female justice, the South Carolina Supreme Court on Wednesday upheld restrictions that would ban most abortions at around the 6th week of pregnancy. The 4-1 decision means the state's abortion ban, which Republican Governor Henry McMaster signed into law in May, can go into effect. The decision brings an end to the brief religious abortion rights advocates found in January when then Justice Kay Hearn wrote a majority opinion striking down a separate 6-week ban tied to a 2021 state law, arguing it violated the state's constitutional right to privacy after Hearn's mandatory retirement. South Carolina was left with an all-male high court. In the majority opinion on Wednesday, Justice John Kittredge wrote that to be sure, the 2023 Act infringes on a woman's right to privacy and bodily autonomy while holding the law was still constitutional. The legislature has made a policy determination that at a certain point in pregnancy, a woman's interest in autonomy and privacy does not outweigh the interest of the unborn child to live. I want to live, he wrote. As a court, unless we can say that the balance struck by the legislature was unreasonable as a matter of law, we must uphold the act. Before she left, Hearn declined to comment on the January opinion she authored. She responded to Wednesday's decision, writing in a text message, "It's a very sad day for our state." I love the fact that they come up here and try to tell you and propagandize to you that this is because this is an all-male court. I want to remind you, we've actually got some very, very funny commentary in this at this point, and we'll read this in just a sec. I want to remind you that Roe versus Wade was decided by an all-male court. And Roe versus Wade being overturned was decided by a court that was 1/3 female. Just a reminder. Mogwai asked the important question, did they ask the justices their pronouns? Also saying $5 footlong as seen on To Catch Predator. Hey, I'm Chris Hansen. Come in here and have a seat. All single-use plastic should be banned, says Spartan. You know my position on banning things. It has to do with my position on the government. And I don't use any single-use plastics anyway. Like, I will use most of my plastic stuff at least once after the fact. But I don't think the government should compel everybody to do that. I do that on my own. From ABC, tensions high in San Francisco as city seeks reversal of ban on clearing homeless encampments. From Janie Haar, tensions flared on Wednesday as lawyers for San Francisco argued in appellate court that the city can no longer maintain safe, clean streets while trying to get homeless people indoors after a federal judge banned the city from clearing tent encampments until there are more shelter beds than homeless individuals. San Francisco attorney David Chu said people are refusing offers of shelter more frequently because of the injunction, and that it would cost at least $1.5 billion to house every person who is currently homeless. Well, not only that, but if you house everybody who is currently homeless, where do you think the rest of the homeless in the country are going to go start running to? Or even if you promise to do so, where do you think the homeless people in the rest of the country are going to start running to? The order has drawn furious responses from Mayor Breed, who joined more than 200 people outside the federal courthouse on Wednesday to urge the U.S. Ninth Circuit to vacate the order. We are compassionate, we are supportive, we continue to help people, but this is not the way, she said. Anything goes in San Francisco is not the way. But attorneys for homeless residents who sued the city argued that before the panel, that the district judge was correct to order the city to stop forcing homeless people to move their belongings and tents until there are thousands more shelter beds available. In fact, they intend to ask the same judge at the hearing Thursday to enforce the injunction. There are 3,000 shelter beds in the city for 7,000 or more unhoused people who are sleeping outside every night because they have no choice in the matter, said Zal Schroff, interim legal director at the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights of the San Francisco Bay Area at Wednesday's rally. Frustrations over homeless tents are playing out in court in other U.S. cities, largely in western states governed by the Ninth Circuit, which includes California and is often in the forefront of key societal issues. In 2018, the appellate court ruled that homeless people cannot be punished for sleeping outdoors when there is nowhere else for them to go. The issue could be taken up at the Supreme Court after lawyers for the small southern Oregon city of Grants Pass petitioned this week for a review of an injunction prohibiting enforcement of the city's anti-camping ordinance, even through civil as opposed to criminal citations. It's unclear when the panel of judges, Patrick J. Bumatai, Rupali Desai, and Lucy Koh, will issue the decision, but they seem puzzled by the city's confusion over its enforcement options when they sought clarifications from the other side on which enforcement actions were acceptable. Honestly, I'm looking at this and I'm pointing out the fact that I don't necessarily know why this, I understand why there's an issue with clearing out the encampments, with advocacy groups suing to have the law enforced so that they clear out the tent cities that are out there. But I mean, London Breed, you're the mayor. You get the decision on what rules to enforce and what not to. It's a shitty situation, but you get that decision, and if the people of San Francisco want to change that, it's they can vote you out, which they should, by the way, because you suck. Or especially if you have a far, far left set of aldermen in your city, can you not pressure them to repeal the law? I don't understand why this is going to the courts. There seem to be options that are going out there that go the other direction. This doesn't seem like this should be a court thing. Especially in solid blue cities that have not seen a Republican governance in decades. Some interesting, possibly conspiratorial things, and I think we'll close out for the day after this. Maui fire survivors say authorities blocked the only paved road out of Lahaina as town burned. From Zach Jewell. Big if true, I don't know if this is true or not. Witnesses, survivors of the Maui fire that struck through the town of Lahaina, said the only paved road out was barricaded by authorities as flames overcame the town, according to a report from the Associated Press. Maui was devastated earlier this month, with Lahaina taking the brunt of one of the deadliest wildfires in modern American history so far. 115 people have been confirmed dead, while 800 to 1,000 remain missing. Maui Police Chief John Pelletier said during a news conference that residents were not prevented from fleeing Lahaina, but accounts from some survivors suggested that they were hindered from making a quick escape because of the decision to close the Honoapiilani Highway in a bypass at the south end of town. Witnesses who survived the blaze said that traffic quickly backed up as residents attempted to flee to the south. But the road was blocked as a crew worked on down power lines. One family ignored the barricade and swerved past the cones placed on the road, making it safely to another town nearly an hour later. So, the way they're framing it here is it doesn't seem like they did it with malice. But this just adds up onto a stack of things that just don't completely add up. The emergency alert system being put down and them trying to defend that. The power line breaking, starting things out there. Plus, I mean, now they're blocking the road. They just happen to be blocking the only road out of the town. I don't know. I tend to dabble in conspiracy theories, but I try to keep with the green check side of what's on there. But just, there's so much out here that looks so mysterious. And I have so many questions about this. But that is what it is that they have to say with that. And I'm going to close out for the night because I got to go do some wash before leaving tomorrow. And, well, the wonderful thing about living where I live is it takes 2 cycles in the dryer. So that's 2 hours in and of itself, plus the wash cycle, plus everything else I've got to get done tonight. So let's throw some outro music up. And let's head out of here. Alright, as we go, just a reminder that this is probably, at least for a little while, the last time we do this on a Friday. I am taking off in the month of September from Contemporary to restructure, to reshape, and see what is going to be the best way to deliver news to the people while not burning myself out completely on a daily show. So I've debated going weekly with it, so that's a possibility. We might do that. I know I want to do some more gaming streams, so that's going to be a possibility. I don't know what's going to do and work out the best for this. Again, me taking a break in September is not me walking away from media entirely. The golden microphone is still here. It's still going to be used. And I do have a lot of ideas for one-off videos that are coming up in the near future. And God forbid, hey, maybe I'll play a video game every once in a while instead of just working from the time I get up to the time I go to bed. And of course, if I do that, you know I'm going to stream it. I love you guys. But with that, we're out of here for the night. Take care. Have a good night. If you are on the Twitch side, stick around. We're going to come and hang out and find somebody else to go raid. I'm going to go do some laundry. We will see you here on Monday for the final week for at least a little while in Contemporary. And we'll talk about what happened over the weekend, what has launched because of the indictments and because of the arrests and everything else. I'm sure that's going to be at the top of the news. We'll talk about Elon, we'll talk about some other things that happened over the weekend, and whatever else happens in the next 48 hours. Take care. Have a fantastic night. Hug your family, call your friends, get some dinner, get some nice rest, get a drink. It's Friday night. Go on a date, find something for that, and we will see you here next time for more news, more headlines, and more Contemporary. And until then, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.